Okay, I think the mics are on. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday. It is Monday, May 13th, coming off a Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to everybody in the town of Tiverton. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Councilor Perry,
Present.
Councilor Hilton,
Present.
Councilor DiMederos,
Present.
Councilor Katz,
Present.
Councilor Coulter,
Present.
Councilor Cook,
Present.
Councilor Driggs.
Present. All present.
All right, we have a fairly long agenda tonight, a very long consent agenda. I'm going to read all of it. First, we have the Town Council minutes, March 25th, regular and executive. There's one item on the executive that Councilors Coulter, Katz, and Driggs will abstain. On April 1st, we have regular and executive. Councilor DiMederos will abstain. April 8th, regular only. Councilor DiMederos abstaining. And April 22nd, regular session, Councilor Perry abstaining. We have receipts of various minutes. We acknowledge 5 sets from our Board of Canvassers, a set from the Tiverton Open Space and Land Preservation Commission, one from the Tiverton Prevention Coalition, and one from the Planning Board. We also acknowledge receipt of the Police and Fire Department overtime reports and the April monthly department reports from our town administrator. Various correspondence, the Burrillville Town Council resolution declaring that town a Second Amendment sanctuary town, the Smithfield School Department, a school committee resolution on career and technical education in comprehensive high schools, the Portsmouth Town Council proclamation for Small Business Week, the Pawtucket School Committee, a resolution on financial literacy. We have our town administrator sponsoring approval of an aquatic examiner service agreement with the Interlocal and the American National Red Cross. That includes authorization to sign the agreement. Another item from our administrator to approve and advertise various AFSCME clerical positions after proper postings. Another item to advertise for the CCO dispatcher position, full and part-time. Another advertisement for our town planner / administrative officer. We acknowledge various resignations. Mr. Michael Tavares from the Recreation Commission, Jeffrey Karen from the Budget Committee. Raymond Fougere is not a resignation, but a withdrawal of a request for appointment. We also have a town council resolution. This is our town council resolution designating the National Police Week from May 13th to May 20th. We have one tax assessor abatement approval. The town clerk is on the board here with the approval to advertise for the public hearing on fines and fees resolution with proposed updates. That'd be at the May 28th, that's a Tuesday. Monday, May 27th, 2 weeks from tonight, is Memorial Day. Our police chief, Chief Jones, approval to advertise for public hearing on May 28th to amend the Code of Ordinances, more specifically Section 78-136, Article 5, handicap and disability parking.
Mr. President, I'd like to remove D1.
D1.
That's the Burrillville resolution.
Okay. Any other items to be removed from the longest consent agenda of the year, I think?
Yes,
President. Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would like to remove the approval for advertised position for town planner. I would like more information before I go forward with this.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
I second that, Donna.
Each, we've got rules. Any others?
Yes, I
Okay.
would like to remove E, 4E.
E.
E, the
Aquinnet.
Aquatic.
aquatic.
Yeah.
And I
just-
second that one.
I just had a question. Thank you.
I'd like to remove approval of Town Council resolution designating National Police Week. I feel we need to read that out
To
loud.
read it. Any objection to reading that immediately upon approval?
No.
Okay. Any others for removal? Okay, may I have a motion to approve all as
Oh,
presented?
hang on,
Wait a
I'm
minute.
sorry. I'd also like to remove item I.
All 3 of them?
Yeah, all 3 of them, I
All
guess.
3. Item I. That leaves A, B, C, D, 2, 3, 4, F, G, K, L, and M. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Discussion?
Second.
Second. We are now in discussion of the omnibus consent motion.
I would just like to point out something. I know that the format of this agenda has changed, but it says under Note 3, all items listed with a CA are to be considered routine, but there's no CA. I'm going to vote for this, but just technically, they're not posted the way the language claims they need to be.
I agree.
Can I ask you, why does not number 4 consent agenda mean CA?
It says all items listed with a CA, but none of the items are listed with a CA next to them anymore. It's not the end of the world, but it's technically not accurate.
So
So
we'll
if,
write out the word CA to say consent agenda.
Well, just for the clerk's benefit, do you prefer to have the letter CA after each of those items, or can we just
Or
take?
just take
Can we
the
just take the
words-
notation out,
ju-
since it's
take
all
it out.
under
just take
consent
the
agenda?
notation out that says this is the consent agenda.
Got it.
Just so
Thank you.
it's accurate.
Okay.
So what's the problem?
No problem.
I don't think there's a problem.
No problem, we
Okay, may I
just-
have a vote to approve?
Approve what? Something that's,
The consent agenda.
The consent agenda, except what's been taken out, Donna.
no, I don't think it's necessary. It tells me right here what it is.
No, that's not.
That's
No,
not
no,
what,
the
that's not what
motion
we're
was
talking
to
about.
accept the consent agenda, except for the
Oh, okay.
items he named.
Okay, got it.
I'll mark that down as 7-0.
God help me.
I got you.
Can you
Rob.
say the motion? I'm sorry.
The motion was to approve the rest of the consent agenda,
Yeah.
not the ones that you withdrew.
Right.
Okay, so it's
In our
unanimous.
future agendas, we'll spell out CA to say consent agenda, or we will not say CA when we've already said consent. Okay? All right, so that's 7-0.
Rob, will you be reading the resolution, or would you like?
Would you like to?
You can do it, I don't care.
Sure, I'm happy to. Or, I don't know. If you'd like to.
It's for Jack.
Please.
A lot of fours here.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
J. 4J.
I thought we
Rob,
read
here.
items like at the end of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
We did not hold a meeting on the 5th Monday of April, so this is a resolution of the town council. In the resolution, although I guess we haven't actually approved yet, if approved, we'll say, recognizing National Police Week 2019 and honoring the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including all dedicated Tiverton police officers. And whereas nearly 60,211 assaults against law enforcement officers were reported in 2017, resulting in approximately 17,476 injuries. Whereas preliminary figures for 2019 show 40 police officers from January 1st, 2019 to May 7th of this year have made the ultimate sacrifice. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, almost 20,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. And whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., whereas 371 names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring to include 158 officers who were killed during 2018, plus 213 officers who died in previous years, but whose stories of sacrifice had been lost to history until now. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 29th annual candlelight vigil on the evening of May 13th, 2019, that is tonight. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of National Police Week, which takes place this year, starting today, May 13th to the 20th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families. Therefore, be it resolved that this body, the Tiverton Town Council, formally designates May 13th to the 20th of this year as Police Week in the town of Tiverton and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to take consent agenda item D1 out of order and do it now.
Mr. President, I think maybe we should take all consent agendas that were withdrawn and pull it up forward so we can discuss them instead of just D1.
Do I have a second to my motion?
Your motion is all of them or just
Just D1.
D1? Okay, is there a second to just D1, taking out of order?
Second.
Have a motion and a second?
I only brought this up,
Do you want to vote? Do you
well,
want to
we can discuss.
accommodate?
Well, I
we can
think we
discuss
need to
the-
vote and,
You
We'll
want
just
to
take it out
discuss?
of order.
Well,
But we
we
need
can
to vote.
discuss that motion to take it out of order.
Very well, okay.
And that's all, I just meant to say, the only reason I pulled this specific one out is because I've heard from a lot of residents, I think several of them are in the audience and wanted to hear this sooner than later. So, I mean, if we really want to take them all at the beginning of the meeting, that's fine by me, but this one in particular, I think there are people who don't necessarily have to stay for the whole meeting, whereas the other ones are, I don't think, of that nature. That was why I picked this one in particular.
Okay, well, why don't we handle this one, and these are somewhat new rules, trying to make these meetings go a little quicker, but if there's others that we think we want to take right away, then let's tackle those next. All right, I'm not quite sure this is a debatable motion, so I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Okay, all right, over to you.
Okay, this is the receipt.
4D1.
Yes, the receipt of the Burrillville Town Council resolution declaring the town of Burrillville a Second Amendment sanctuary town. I just wanted to request that we set up a special meeting next Monday or Tuesday to consider a resolution similar to this for the town of Tiverton.
Did you want to see discussion on that now, or?
We can discuss that now. So I guess it's a motion to put this, to have a special meeting next Monday or Tuesday.
Mr. President, I'm on vacation next week. I'll try to make any of the day, but I may not be here, depending on what I'm doing.
I'd also like to ask if we could push this a little bit. This is a big weekend for a lot of families. It's a graduation weekend for many people. It's a busy time of the year. And we've had a number of meetings lately. If we could have a little bit more time for all of us to come up to speed on the issue and do a little more research, and maybe not, back it up in the middle of graduation season, that would be helpful.
How about June 3rd, Justin? Does that make sense to you, or is that too far? That's
Well,
a
I think-
Monday, that's not a meeting night.
Well, the reason for some immediacy on this issue is that part of the reason people are asking for this is to have some influence on the General Assembly and the governor as they consider legislation at the state level. So the sooner we were to discuss this and decide one way or another, that would better suit that purpose. So I think June would probably be going too late.
Would you have any idea when this is going to be discussed, as far as the statewide?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's usually later in the summer when they,
They've been doing a lot of weird things this year.
yeah, I know.
So our next regular meeting is the 28th.
We could put it on that agenda.
There may be a lot of discussion, that's why I thought maybe something on its own, but that's to the.
I'm indifferent. I kind of wanted to have a meeting last week, but we could also decide at the end of this meeting how we're feeling, see how we do on this agenda, but I'm all for having another meeting if that's your pleasure.
So what day,
Having another meeting.
what, right. So you're going to do it next week? No, I'm all for having another meeting. I just don't know if next week's the best one, but that's fine.
I can't do it next week.
I'll only offer that on Tuesday, the planning board meets in this space, so that may be a problem.
I am on
The
vacation.
29th or the 30th of May, would that be better?
That would be better for me.
Next Monday is the
20th.
20th.
We have some, we might lose one or two. We lose you all week? Or-
Well, I'll try my best, but it is a vacation week, so I'll see. Would we consider it the next week, the 29th or 30th?
Well, we have a meeting on the
28th.
28th, right? I wouldn't want to go much, any past that.
We meet on the 28th anyway?
Yes.
Oh, let's do that.
Do you want to resolve this now, or everybody transmit their availability to the clerk, and I'll try to fix something, or do you want to hammer this out now?
Don't matter to me. I'm free any of those, so.
All right, so,
Well, could we agree to put it at least on the agenda of the 28th? And then if, as things develop, we decide we want another meeting next week, we can,
Sure.
are
So
there,
we're going to have a draft resolution for the 28th.
but you're envisioning almost like a public hearing type of.
oh, yeah,
You
well,
don't have to, but it's only correspondence, so.
Okay. Okay, so what I think I'm hearing from the sense of the council is item 4D1, the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution, is going to be taken up, not tonight, but at a future council meeting, perhaps a special meeting, depending on how much of this agenda we can get through tonight, otherwise, no later than Tuesday, May 28th. It won't be advertised as a public formal hearing, but we will allow public comment. And so with that, are there any other consent agenda items that people would like to see for now rather than at the?
could I just move to accept that consent agenda?
Oh, of course, I'm sorry.
D1?
All right, we have a motion to approve the acknowledgement, and just not the approval, but the acknowledgement of the Berlin resolution.
Second.
I so do.
All right, all those in favor? Okay. Any of the other sponsors, would you like to do something now instead of?
No, it's all right. We'll wait because I know there's a lot of people in the audience waiting for licenses and so forth, so we'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us through the consent agenda. We're now moving into we have a public presentation tonight. This is a request to approve the Tiverton Days celebration in late July. We have Ms. Linda Larson here. If you'd like to have a little publicity about the event and tell us about this year's third, fourth? Can't remember how.
Seventh.
Seventh, sorry.
It goes
Years
quick.
usually go by.
Yeah, so a couple of different things. So thank you. So we're here before you to request, and it says on the agenda, request town sponsorship. And what sponsorship means does not mean financial sponsorship. It means approval as a town-wide celebration and a town event. So we are in our 7th year. The date this year is July 26th through the 28th. Consider it, and, to be a town-sponsored event. It's still all located on town property. It's open and accessible to all, and there's no charge for any of the events. Schedule of events, we're looking at Friday to be at Pecasset Fields again, 6 to 9, with music and food trucks and the fire pits like we did last year. Music will be 7 to 9. We would come back before you if you approve tonight with the sound variance ordinance and special events like we've done in the past. Saturday is our parade, so staging is at 9, again, in the same Judson Street area. The parade steps off at 10, runs from Family Ties, and ends down at Little Bear. It's 1.6 miles. Library, we're doing the townwide scavenger hunt again, starts at 1:30, and then the family and children activity at the library from 2 to 4, and this year's focus will be monarch butterflies in partnership with the Tiverton Arts Council. Sunday, we'll be doing beach yoga again down at Grinnell's from 8 to 9. We'll then be moving over to Coastal Roasters for our community coffee. We've had a great business support from Coastal Roasters that have hosted the folks that attend beach yoga in the morning. And then our Tiverton Fire Department are planning their open house on Sunday from 10 to 2 with activities for children and blood pressure screenings and those kinds of things. I have met with the Recreation Committee for use of Pecasset Fields as well as the beach. I've met with Tiverton, the Tiverton Police Chief as well as the Tiverton Fire Chief for all approvals, just like we've done in years past. We'll also be reaching out to our businesses and as well as our restaurants if anyone wants to do some type of a Tiverton Day special, whether it be a special at the restaurant or have some kind of promotional activity or something within their business that week leading up to or that weekend. And like I said, if approved tonight, we would be coming back before you with all state parade permits, sound variances, special event licensing, all of that. We do have an account with the treasurer, so we do accept donations. So we run everything through the town, so if anyone's making a donation, it sits with our treasurer here, and that pays for any type of music, entertainment, porta-john rentals, those kinds of things. So all activities are covered. We do not use town funds. Those are all sponsored by donations that we accept from the community as well as businesses.
Thank
So
you,
I think we're
Linda.
looking for a motion to approve the sponsorship in general, and then there'll be a more specific variance coming back in later.
So
Is
moved.
that accurate?
Second.
And I just, because it is a resolution, I just want to ask if anybody in the public would like to be heard on this. Great, so 7th year. All
It's
those in
been a
favor?
long time.
It has been.
Okay, great.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, we are into advertised public hearings, another perennial event, Singing Out Against Hunger. I guess we'll have to take these separately. First, we have Evelyn's Drive-In, sponsored by Jane Bitto, Singing Out Against Hunger. That's
Jane looks different.
2335 Main Road. The dates are Friday, August 9th, and Friday, September 6th, with a rain date on September 7th, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. I guess we'll take 2 votes, one for the sound variance and one for the special event license. And would anybody like just a little advertising, or should we proceed right to vote? Any comments or
Well,
questions from the public?
I think Don's here instead of Jane.
Sure.
So it's basically, if you want to come up, Don.
They've always done.
I'm
It's
pretty sure we'll
basically-
pass, but here's your
yeah.
chance to tell us, tell the TV.
Well, this is kind of advertisement, Dom, so go with me. This is basically what has been done last year.
Yeah, we're
And yes.
doing exactly the same thing as we did last year and the year before. We're just one less day. this
And how
year.
many years have you done this?
It's, I think 2003,
So 16.
about. Got to be that 16th, I think.
This is an advertised public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Second call? Okay, I guess we'll take 2 separate votes. May I have a motion to approve the sound variance, please?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the sound variance for Sing Out at Hunger at Evelyn's Drive-In, 2335 Main Road, Friday, August 9th, and Friday, September 6th, with a rain date of September 7th from 4 to 9 p.m.
Second.
I'm going to give that tie to Denise.
Give it
I
to
think.
whoever.
Yeah, I think Nancy had you on the last one. So second from Denise. All those in favor? Okay, and we'll take a separate vote for the special event license. Tricia?
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve a special event license for Sing Out Against Hunger, held at Evelyn's Drive-In, 2335 Main Road, Friday, August 9th, and Friday, September 6th, with a rain date of September 7th from 4 to 9 p.m., subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Nancy,
Second.
you can have the second. Oh, okay. I was going to give it to you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Similarly, but different location and different date, Coastal Roasters, sponsored by Lisa Machado, Singing Out Against Hunger. That's at 1791 Main Road, up the road. This date is Saturday, July 20th, 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. That has a rain date of July 21st. Anything to add?
Lisa, same as last year, right? Except last year you didn't have it because of the rain.
Correct.
Okay.
We've gotten all of our rain out, I hope.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
And you've also done this for 16 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is 6B. This is a public hearing. Anybody wish to be heard on this? Okay. All right.
Okay,
Take it,
I'll
yeah, go for it.
happily. I'll make a motion to approve a sound variance for Lisa Machado Coastal Roaster singing out against hunger, 1791 Main Road for Saturday, July 20th from 9:30 to 1:30 PM with a rain date of July 21st.
Second.
All those in favor? And the special event license?
And I'll make a motion to approve a special event license for Coastal Roasters Sing Out Against Hunger at 1791 Main Road, Saturday, July 20th from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. with a rain date of July 21st, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are still wearing our licensing board hats. We have, this is, I think, another repeat event, pretty sure. This is the 11th annual. So here, John Cordero, the Megan L. Cordero Memorial Foundation, requests permission to hold the 11th annual Miles for Megan Bike, Ride, and Walk. This would be July 20th, same date.
No.
No?
Correction.
No, Mr. President, there is a cut and paste problem on this.
I was hoping it wasn't the same day.
No, it looks like,
Cut and
yeah, it looks
paste
like
and
my,
the part
my
of an
information got
LP.
mixed up with the sign out front. So the event will be September 21st.
John, would you like to explain a little bit about this? Because I think this is an unbelievably great event.
Sure, thank you. So it'll be the 21st of September. It'll start and finish at Town Farm. Okay, and we'll be there from about 7 in the morning until about 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. So the Megan Cordero Memorial Foundation was established by my wife and my daughters, surviving daughters and I, after the death of our daughter Megan back in 2008. So we started the Megan Cordero Memorial Foundation to try to pay it forward and help those organizations continue their efforts, the organizations that we came in contact with while Megan was going through her cancer diagnosis. And unfortunately, her untimely death. So for the last 10 years, we've held this event at the Tiverton Town Farm. We do a bike ride, and it is a ride. It is not a race. This is a nice, leisurely ride, and a walk for those who don't ride bikes at the Town Farm. So we hold the event at the Town Farm. We register riders. They get donations to support them in their efforts to support us. We send them off in 3 separate directions. So we have 3 different routes that will proceed. They're pretty much by level of skill or activity. A 62-mile ride, a 25-mile ride, and then a 12.5-mile ride. So we average about anywhere from 90 to 110 riders annually, and they're spread across those 3 routes. So we basically have about 100 people spread out across 120 miles of Tiverton and Little Compton throughout the day. So we head off at about 9 in the morning. My riders are usually back. The last ones trickle in about 2 in the afternoon. We have an event at Town Farm. We provide a cookout, a barbecue cookout for our participants, walkers and riders. We have an extensive raffle table set up for people to try to win some nice prizes, and we just have a great day, and it's for a worthy cause. And over the last 10 years, we've been fortunate enough to have very generous people from town and from out of town, from all over the state, from out of state, come to our event, and we've raised well over $250,000 in the last 10 years. And 90% of that is given out to those charities that help us and continue to help people dealing with a pediatric cancer diagnosis. And now we've got some nice funds in reserve to continue helping people.
Can I ask a quick question? So if you sign up to do this, is it up to you then to request friends, people to
Exactly.
give
Exactly. You'd register with us, and actually there's a platform that we use where you come on and register, you create your own page, and then you send out an email to your friends and family saying, hey, here's the event that I'm participating in. Would you donate to my cause?
Okay.
and they can donate directly to you, directly to your page on that website, and that's how we raise money.
And do the riders wear any particular, like something?
Well, everyone gets a bib number,
Okay.
but it depends on how much money you raise, whether or not you get a jersey.
I just want to say that I knew Megan myself, and I think this is a wonderful way to keep her memory alive, and I really do appreciate everything you've done for her.
Thank you.
So we have the wrong dates on the agenda, I guess.
We can just change them,
Should
can't
we
we?
just do a pro forma vote
Yeah.
now and then again?
Where's the wrong
I
date?
think we can.
And folks, we have plenty of time from between now and September. If the technicality requires you to put me on another agenda, worded correctly, that's not an issue with
On
us.
the agenda request, it's on the back, the right
It
date.
was on the right, at the backup, it's just a technical.
Right, the backup's correct, the front, and if it's a technicality that's gonna cause any issues or any stink eyes, then by all means, put it on another agenda correctly. We have no issue with that. We have plenty of time. I'm still gathering. And what I'd be asking you to do anyway is similar to what you did up above me, is subject to meeting all legal requirements, because it's an ongoing process with us and the clerk's office of supplying the total package as we go. Like the insurance, I can't buy the insurance until 30 days before the event. You know, the company won't sell it to me that soon. So there's no issues if this has to get worded correctly on your next agenda. You know, maybe I won't even have to come unless you want me.
I would suggest maybe voting for the sake of the effort tonight, and then putting on a consent agenda for the 28th.
Consent agenda.
Okay.
Because it doesn't need to be
That way
formally
you don't have to come back.
advertised, so.
Sure. Yeah, and the clerk's office can, you know, she can, you know, if she wants to send it to me or have me come down and look at it to make sure everything's copacetic. I understand, no
This is
big deal.
Once you're at year 11, you're writing the book on this. Probably know better. So, well, this is wonderful. Would anybody from the public like to be heard on this? All right, well, why don't we, let's have the resolution for the support. We'll do a cleanup vote later, don't even worry.
What's the rain date?
No rain date, rain or shine. It won't be the first time.
I've been sitting here wondering how long it would take me to bicycle 62 miles.
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah, it's probably gonna take you about 4 hours if you don't ride.
More than one day just to complete.
It's more the recovery.
How long is it gonna take you to recover? Yeah, that's the main.
I'm gonna do 62.
Okay, who would like the pleasure of the
Yeah.
motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the 11th Annual Miles for Macon Bike Ride Walk event, September 21st, 2019, start and finish at Town Farm Recreational Facility in Tiverton, Lawton Avenue, near Fort Barton School. Registration towards,
That's the typo
No.
part.
Yeah,
So
you-
just
That's
stop
the
with
Town farm.
Yeah.
stop with the town farm.
okay.
Get as far as Town Farm and you're right.
Well, I know why this is here, and I'm going to bring it up next, but in Tiverton.
Second.
All those in favor? Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know why that typo was there, because I just realized it, and the police chief, Chief Jones, on the 20th, we may be a little busy on Main Road because we have the Courtney Roderick Run for Recovery that day, and we have the Coastal Roasters singing out against hunger. Just to give you the heads up that that might be a very busy place that day. You're welcome.
But very musical.
Three wonderful events in a row. We are still in Board of Licensing mode. We have a victualling license request. Jody Roy and Lori Roy doing business as Bliss Four Corners Bakery on Cranwell Road, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Would anybody like to be heard on the matter?
Mr. President, I received the menu and the floor plan, which is part of the requirement of the packet, so it is in order. I do have both of them
Yeah, the free
received.
samples, did we have the free samples?
Well, she is giving out 3 samples here and there.
How come I missed that?
Well, it's like a taste test.
So is this, well, tell us all about it.
We have decided to open up a bakery right on Bliss Four Corners and actually name it, as of right now, name it after the history behind Bliss Four Corners. So that is why it's called Bliss Four Corner Bakery. Jody and I decided to make that leap because we're not getting any younger, and we decided to do something that can bring a little bit of a different vibe in that area. It is a cafe as well. So we have 14 seats scheduled as of right now, only because a flow test would need to be done for the 30 seats. And not that we would do 30 seats, I don't think really, it's just the object of the place is to kind of have a warm, comfortable, spacious vibe. So we don't want to really pack people in, but if we have enough, it's 1,600 square feet. So if we have enough room for a couple more chairs, we want to be able to throw them in.
Well, you have the inside track, I think, on how these things get approved. So is there anybody who wish to be heard on this matter? Any questions or comments?
When's the schedule, when are you scheduled to open?
Sometime in the beginning of July. There is some work still that needs to be done, so it is going to take a bit, and we don't want to become overwhelmed and have our general public saying, oh my God, the shelves are empty. So we'd like to be able to come right into this a little smoother than trying to get the rush.
So I have a question, the artist side of me. You mentioned art displays with artist participation. Are you anticipating a forum for people to put up art on the? Okay.
Yeah, we're looking something to the extent, and we haven't really nailed that down yet because we have to wait for design. Again, there's a lot of space in there, and we want to give it a little bit of an eclectic vibe where we have, the Four Corners doesn't have a lot to look at outside. So we thought about having a live artist, and their stuff would be up for the month.
Yeah.
And it gives people kind of something to come in, sit down, and watch the artist work.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
A little different.
And coffee? You'll have coffee, right?
Coffee, creperies, we're really gonna be working with crepes. Jody does all the baking. That is a good thing because.
Did you agree to that?
I don't measure. She's all about baking. So, and I'm more customer service side.
All right, may I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I'll move the Jody Roy and Lori Roy doing business as Bliss Four Corners Bakery, 2 Crandall Road, Units 2 and 3, requesting approval of a victualling license subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Good luck.
Mr. President?
Can I just say I just wanted to say one more thing. Over the past few weeks, Facebook followers have been speculating reasons for our leave. And we wanted to clarify, there is no particular group that affected our decision either way. In the 15 or 21 years of service that we've had with the council, we've seen them come and go. We have always maintained our professionalism and ultimately been servants of our townspeople and our community. We chose this time to leave, not because of politics, but rather to follow our dream. As anyone who knows us both knows, Jody and I have struggled medically and struggled work-wise. It taught us something, though, and as did our town. We can overcome any challenge. Nancy, you have been fabulous. You have taught me so much. This town has taught us so much. And the decision we made came from what we've learned here. We love our people, our town, and our community. We don't want our dreams to become a regret because we waited too long and age can erase some opportunities. The town people are very important to us. And with Jody's love for bacon and my incessant need to keep talking, we hope to give back to the community in a new light. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, before Jody and Lori disappear for just 1 second, how many years for you, Lori, here?
15.
And Jody? 21, which probably seems like 121 sometimes. Anyways, I'm sure I speak for many of us, but to just not only wish you the best of luck, but to thank you for your service. You've always been incredibly helpful. And on a personal level, after all my years on the Conservation Commission and my 300 million trips into Jody's office, and her always being helpful to me, I just wish you the best of luck. We're going to miss you, though.
I second that. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I wanted to briefly, I skipped over, just very quickly under, I guess it would be 7, our Arts Council representative. You had a 30-second comment, I think, sure.
Time's up.
I want to draw your attention to the rather somber display, but...
It really is beautiful, though. It's not that somber.
Well, for a number of years now, I thought that if a couple of commissions or boards work together, you can really accomplish more. So we reached out to the Historical Advisory Board, which I'm also a member of, and the Cemetery Commission, and we came up with a display of headstones. And Susan Anderson did an absolutely amazing job researching the people behind the headstones. So thank you. And the Arts Council framed them, and my daughter's business actually printed them because the printing alone would have wiped out our whole budget. So it didn't come out of the Tiverton budget thing. And I think it's something different.
They're very wonderful.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'm feeling guilty. Is it too late to send pictures to the paper?
I submitted all the things, and they didn't ask for any pictures, and,
Okay.
and Marcia did a wonderful thing.
I think Masha had a picture,
For
though.
the
Okay,
Daily
all right,
News.
okay.
So I don't know if the Journal or somebody wants a picture.
Okay.
But I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Masha did have a picture of one of them. Right, Mash? Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, actually, we're moving right along here. We're next on to appointments. We have two matters. First, on the Budget Committee, we have, per charter, the automatic appointment of Mr. Michael Dakotas from Louise Drive. This is a vacancy in elected office, so by charter, Mr. Dakotas will be installed. I don't know.
We need a motion.
I guess we can acknowledge it. I don't know that we have, we can't block it, but let's, did you want to do the oath of office now, or are you going to?
Mike's here, Nancy. You want to just do it now?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the
Okay.
Okay. I think we need a motion, though, no?
Well, let's,
No?
well, what's your
Okay.
pleasure?
I'm not sure.
You can acknowledge it in the sense that you're acknowledging that he was in fact the next highest vote getter, but obviously it's not an appointment in this traditional sense.
Okay.
We have a motion to acknowledge the appointment, please?
I make a motion to acknowledge the appointment of Michael C. Dakotas, 19 Louise Drive, to the Budget Committee, unexpired term to 11/8/2022.
Second. You can have a
You have
joke.
to make some tough referee calls tonight. I think
I know.
Mr. Perry had that one.
Joe can get
I
that.
think the clerk will confirm you can have multiple seconds.
Okay, well, there's 2 seconds.
Don't tell these guys that. Jeez. Okay, all those in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, and the other, oh, there you are.
Yeah, he's here. He's over there.
Um,
So Mike can come and get sworn in anytime this week?
anytime.
Oh, she is doing it now.
Next, we have the Recreation Commission. This is a reappointment request of Chris Romlin, High Hill Road. This is a 3-year term. We have 2 vacancies, and this is a reappointment, so I'm comfortable proceeding right to a vote, or would anybody like to
I'll make a
discuss?
motion, we reappoint Chris Romlin to the Recreation Committee.
I second it, and I'd like to also say that Chris has done a wonderful job throughout his term, and I want to thank him for that, and thank you that he's decided to rejoin us.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, we are already down to Part 10, which is general business. Okay, so we're going to start off with the town administrator. This is the approval of appointment of Mr. William L. Moore as our building official and ratification of an employment contract.
Mr. President, I think I'm missing a resume, because I didn't get a resume for this gentleman. Did anyone get one?
I thought it had been in the packet, but I have some.
I thought it might have been an oversight, but I wasn't sure if I was the only one that didn't get one.
Pass this through.
Do I take one?
Yep.
John?
Yes, please.
We need more. Jan, do you have any more? Oh,
Coming.
I need one more. It's just Joe.
Not just me, don't worry about it.
It's just Joe.
Just Joe.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I think it's good news that we have another candidate after trying for a long time to get candidates for this position. I've clarified in my agenda request that although I think we had a good arrangement with Municipal Code Consulting, it's not an ideal arrangement, and both Municipal Code Consulting and we ourselves knew that, and it was never the intent to have that continue indefinitely. So we have Bill Moore, who's actually here today, interested in taking this job. He has done this work in Little Compton. He's done it in Marion, Massachusetts. He's certified as a Rhode Island building inspector by the Building Code Commission. I think he has some of the other characteristics that I think we're looking for in someone to be building inspector. It's a tough job, very demanding, a lot of interactions with applicants, developers, what have you, and it takes a good disposition, so to speak, to be able to handle the different situations, and I think he has that. He's been interviewed by the Personnel Board, who recommended that we consider him. I interviewed him, I spoke with him several times, and I am very confident that he can do a good job for the town of Tiverton.
Rob, is it all if I ask a couple of questions? Is Mr. Moore here?
He is.
Could you come up, please? If Rob doesn't mind. Or if, it's very simple questions. The only thing that I'm concerned about is you will be staying on as the part-time Public Works Director for the DPW. We've had problems with this in the past where our building inspector has had other jobs and hasn't been available to us when we need him. Now, the employee contract says, shall not be employed by any other person, corporation, or organization or occupied with any self-employment during town business hours. Now, this is a 24-hour job. You must realize that. So I just want to know if you feel that there will be any conflict where they may need you and we have a fire going on and we need you down here. Will we be your first priority? That's what I'm asking.
Yes, of course you will. But I do have commitments outside, off business time that, you know, it's a much smaller community than you have here. It's only 12 hours a week. So I feel I can do that on weekends and nights. There are emergencies, there's fires, there's people driving into buildings.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here sometimes.
But it doesn't usually take up your whole night.
No.
It's more of a supervisory emergency to take care of whatever issues happen to me. And I filled in many times before for other inspectors that couldn't get here, live in town. I'm not gonna drive an hour to get here. So I feel I can do it.
No, it's just been a problem in the past, so I just want to make sure, because this is a salary position, so it really is 24 hours call, and I just want to make sure that you feel you can handle both of them. And I have no doubt if you're telling me you can, but I'm just concerned because it is written in your contract, so.
I've been doing both positions really the last 15 years anyway.
You've been working for another?
No, when I was a full-time inspector in Little Compton, I did the highways. I've been doing that job for 15 years.
Okay.
But I understand.
We'll be your first love.
Yeah.
And so to that point, will there be, just to avoid any confusion in the ever, and you know, you can imagine we're probably a little gun shy because we've had a couple of situations, particularly in that office where we had some moonlighting that we didn't actually know was going on. It mentions in the contract outside prior written approval, so however this works out, that'll be detailed in writing by the town administrator, so it'll be really clear the hours that you're expected here, and the time available to fulfill your duties in Little Compton? Okay. And I only have one other request, and that's of the town administrator, and I don't think this is a big issue. And in all fairness to Jan, the last time that this came up, it was before Jan's time, but we had a discussion about town vehicles and positions that have town vehicles, where we had found ourselves with a number of department heads who had town vehicles that were also commuting in them, and in some cases to kind of faraway places, and including, our paying for the gas. So we had said that eventually, as these contracts came up, for employees that do have vehicles, we would have written in what the arrangement would be and whether or not the vehicle was to be used, left here and used here and not used for commuting or
A little Compton.
or whatever it was. And it just hasn't come up since then. It's, but I'm hoping we can get that clarified.
On that point, because we actually did discuss it, the vehicle will be parked here, and Bill will only use it during
When
his
he's here,
working
and
hours.
obviously, and if he has to use his own vehicle for an emergency, then we would obviously compensate him
Right.
for the use of his vehicle off hours.
I actually thought it was in this.
It is in there.
Is it in there? Because I
Yeah,
was looking.
That part is the second part.
Oh,
The
okay.
second part about compensating for the
Compensation,
vehicle, but the language on the use of the car is sort of, it's the same nebulous language that we had before, and we had said going forward, we would clarify that in contracts.
It's fine. We don't have any room in the driveway.
Besides, you don't want the car anyway. It's not that fancy.
Yeah, you won't like the car, right?
No, it's just generic language. It doesn't
Right,
specify.
and again, in
It just
fairness to
needs to
Jan, the
be-
last time this came up was before his time here. We had said we'd start addressing that in these
I
contracts.
was aware of
going forward.
something, but I think at that time it said that all vehicles had to be parked at DPW, and I thought that was a little bit
Yeah.
Yeah,
inconvenient. but-
yeah.
And in all fairness, Tiani was not here when we had our last problem where we had some moonlighting going on that interrupted, so,
All vehicles are supposed to be lettered too, right, with the town seal?
yeah.
Yes, they are.
I believe that one is.
It's already been lettered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, last question. So, Mr. Moore, I know you filled in here and you live in Tiverton, so you're well aware of the job that you're taking on here. This isn't, it's not a cakewalk.
I would just try to bring some professionalism to the department and try and straighten it out if possible. And not that it's broken, but it could use some help. And that's what we're gonna try and do.
And you're up to that challenge.
As long as everybody helps.
Good
we
for
are.
you.
I'd like to make a motion. Is that okay? Sure. To appoint William Elmore as the building official and ratification of the appointment. Well, I have to do this. No, I can make it one motion, right? Ratification of his contract. With the change, with the suggestions we have made. Does that sound okay?
Can you authorize me to sign it?
Second.
With the authorization of the council for the town administrator to sign it.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Anybody from the public like to be heard on this? Second call? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you.
Congratulations, welcome
Welcome
aboard.
Good luck.
They said over there, I was laughing when they said good luck.
Oh, my God.
Okay, next is 10B. We have sponsored, co-sponsored by Councilors Cook and Driggs. This is an update on an employee code of conduct product that they have been working on. Over to you.
I think, you go ahead. It was really Donna who started this, and I helped out a little bit, but it's Donna's sponsor, and she will talk to.
Nancy's been very helpful, and the solicitor was very helpful with some of the research that he did, and was able to bring forth some other ordinances, and we really need this in town, so that it's very unfortunate that we have to have this in the first place, but we do have to have it, and it protects the town. For a few people that might not behave, puts kind of a damper on all the employees that are fulfilling their job and doing a good job, and it's not right, but to protect the town, we do need to have this ordinance. So I'm hoping that we do approve this. I think it shouldn't be delayed, and I'm asking for everyone to approve it if you so feel that it should. Thank you.
Mr. President,
This is an ordinance, so there's a process for.
we have to
So
have
if I
We need a
may,
hearing, right?
Yeah.
we had presented this as a draft for a couple of reasons. I assisted, obviously, in drafting the ordinance change. There were a couple reasons we did it as a draft and stamped it brightly as such. One was because we wanted Labor Council to look at some of the details. We modeled this off the Providence ordinance, which has been tested by the Supreme Court, but obviously with anything like this, you want to understand the details. I think there's a couple points that we saw and that Tim Cavazza reinforced, the primary being that this only applies to your town pension plans to the extent that it would affect a pension. And since most of your employees are not part of a town pension plan, but rather the state pension plan, they would be subject to the state rules that mirror, or that are similar to this. I shouldn't say mirror. So I don't want to overstate what this would do for the town. I know that you've had issues with regard to the police department, and this would in fact affect those employees because they have a town pension, but it may not affect, say, somebody who is an ASPE employee, or not in the same way at least. The second issue is that there's an ongoing debate as to whether, once you adopt these changes, they need to be integrated into the collective bargaining process. And so that's a discussion that I think Tim Cavazza would probably have with your union representatives. And in fact, I can tell you that as of this afternoon, he had already broached that subject with both the police and fire unions, and they are certainly open to this discussion. But I'm sure we'll have some constructive thoughts on the draft that we've put in front of you. So that's the second reason it was put as a draft. We wanted to make sure that the collective bargaining units had their opportunity to weigh in before this went into the formal ordinance hearing process. And then I feel like there was one more point to make. Well, yeah, and that process would involve advertising and a reading and the usual sort of two meeting process. And I apologize, I had an email from Tim that I meant to attach to my pile here, and I did not. I think the other issue that I'll mention, and maybe that last point will come to me in the discussions, but the other issue I'll mention is that this was set, this draft says it would go into effect. Oh, I'm sorry, no, the third issue. Tim and I discussed at some length, as well as Councilor Cook and Councilor Driggs to some extent, who should be the board that makes the decision in this process. And it's an open question, and we can do it different ways. You can choose to do it in different ways. It could be the pension board, which I understand is a number of appointees, including a council representative for at least the town pension. It could be the council itself, or you could appoint some outside third party, like a retired judge or something along those lines. There's probably a cost to that approach, but that's something that really we didn't quite pin down, and I didn't bring it to the sponsor early enough to let us hash that out. So I don't know if Councilor Cook has an opinion, but I don't have an opinion. I just want to make sure that you're aware that there's different ways to approach that, and in the final draft, I'd like to have some guidance as to which of those to take at the council's preference. So that being said, the effective date we drafted in here was July 1st. Anyone who applies for their pension benefits as of July 1st, if this was to pass in this form, would be subject to this new set of rules, again, with the caveat that there might be a debate about where in the collective bargaining process we fit.
I was just going to ask that, the collective, yeah. So have the unions look this over yet?
I don't know if they've received a copy of this yet, but they were made aware that it was here and it was available to them tonight.
I'm just
and
curious.
So but we have time, obviously, to get their feedback. My understanding is that some unions at least favor this type of ordinance because it clarifies what is right now something that the town can do under common law. And so rather than going down that path and having it be somewhat subjective, at least everyone knows the rules with this, and everyone knows what they're getting into. And so I don't, my sense is, at least from Tim's sense, is that it's not an objection to this, just a question of making sure that it's drafted in a way that makes everyone comfortable.
And I remember, Gio, that one of the questions we had, is this something that each year, even after they're hired, they will renew, that they understand this provision?
We did have some discussion about that. I don't think we put clear language in here. I think after after that discussion, I did a little more research, and my concern is that if you put a requirement in that they, employees be sent a copy of this, or that it be posted, or what have you. My worry is that if you fail to do that for some reason, if that slips through the cracks, then somehow you'd be back to common law, which would undo the whole purpose of this.
Okay.
I think, every contract should reference it, and I think we put language in there saying that it should. But, as long as those contracts are renewed and they're aware of this language, then that should satisfy it. Now, what that doesn't prevent the town from then having an employee handbook or guidance, or, I think we saw one of the, I want to say it was New Jersey, that had this very nice summary of, the employee rights regarding honorable service. They have 5 pages of detailed print outlining both the state and the local rules. I'm not sure Tiverton would need that necessarily, but a little one-pager that might explain this new process might be helpful to send out to all the employees at some point, or all the subject employees.
So where do we go now with this?
Well, it has to be a public hearing, right?
I think we need to look at this and see if there's any final modifications prior to Councilor Cook's submittal at the next opportunity, I guess.
Nancy, this has to be advertised for how long?
10 days.
Okay.
So the process would be, right now, just leave it out there for feedback from the unions and so on, and Councilor Cook would submit it formally, say at our next meeting, and then we would schedule the 10 days, the public hearing? Is that the?
You advertise for 10 days, but I would have to have the final draft, because you have to make it available to the public.
I would think the union's attorneys would probably want to look this over, too.
I just have one other question. Jan, did you look at this, and do you have any concerns?
I did have some concerns, but some of it has been addressed by what Gio said, that Tim said, which is that it doesn't apply to the employees that are in the nurse system. I have some concerns because I since have heard that both the police union and the fire union were quite concerned with it, but I think that may be, a function of not having seen it.
Okay.
And so I think there is a need to have some communication about it, not that necessarily from a legal perspective, the union has any veto right or anything,
Right,
but I think
but-
it makes sense to discuss it, and discuss the pros and cons, of doing this. I had one other question about whether a town ordinance can tell a state judge what to do or not to do, but
Probably not.
Okay.
that's on page 5, but
Unless enabled. Okay, well, thank you for all the hard work on this, and it sounds, I'm getting a sense that there's consensus. Anybody from the public want to be heard on this? If this goes forward, there'll be at least 2 formal hearings and probably another hearing before the hearings, at least 3 more touch points on this, or we go straight to formal hearings?
Oh, there'll be 2.
You could do 2 more touch points. If this can be finalized in advance of the 28th meeting,
And then we say yes to it, and then we
you
advertise.
can do the
So
essentially the
there'll
reading
be
on
at
that and
least
then the
3
vote.
more, at least 3 more times this would come up on the agenda. So, okay, well, would you like to see some kind of vote now, or do you want to wait until you propose a final
I don't
draft?
think
or-
it's not set for vote, it was really just for,
Just a draft.
to make sure that the council is well aware, and if there were questions about details, obviously, those could be answered.
Wonderful. Okay, very well. We'll move on to item 10C with our administrator. This is a request of a ratification of a proposed contract for renewable energy services. This would be a net metering credit sales agreement with Kearsarge Solar LLC. And this is the item from, was it 6 months ago? We were talking about net metering?
Yeah, the
Okay.
solar
You want to reintroduce us?
It took a little while to get it all done. This involved in part working with a specialist attorney who has done many of these contracts in this particular field, who was actually recommended by the selected proponent, but they were on the other side. That's how they knew him, but they were impressed with what he knew and how he did it. And he has been excellent, and I knew that based on his background and experience, he would actually get this done quickly instead of if we had to do it ourselves, it would probably take a much longer period of time. Also, the agreement is one that has in the past been vetted by the State Office of Energy Resources, so it's more or less a model agreement. At least one other proponent used the same basic agreement with hardly any differences. So I'm confident that this is in fact, and Geo also has reviewed this and has no further questions about it. I'm confident that this is, as a contract, a good contract. I don't know how much you remember since it has been a little while, but you know, we went out with an RFP for this type of renewable energy services. Specifically, it deals with corporations or outfits that build a solar farm, generate solar energy, not necessarily in our town, but in all kinds of locations in Rhode Island. And then, given the incentives that are offered under state law, we can take advantage of that and get a discount on the electricity that we pay for, basically without doing anything. And it's I think, a great arrangement, and I'm glad that we're able to take advantage of it sooner rather than later, because it now is in effect, and we can realize these savings almost immediately. This particular agreement is based on a facility they have in South Kingstown. It may also change down the line if that makes sense. They may also have facilities here in town down the line. Bottom line is that I strongly recommend that the council approve this contract. It's going to save the town a little over $1 million over the term of the contract, which is 25 years.
It's like dealing with derivatives. I feel like it's, I
As
can't
I remember,
quite-
there was some discussion about the more risky model and the less risky model of leasing, right? This is the reload.
This was the best one,
The less risky
right?
model.
This is the one he recommended and looked at.
So this is one of these, this is a 21-page, single-spaced contract, and sometimes it doesn't get said how much work goes into generating, you know, things like this, things like the code of conduct work. So I do want to thank the team led by you for the kind of work that goes into this, which, so does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm sure you all read every one of those 21 pages before the meeting.
Yeah.
I
You don't do this
tried.
for fun like I do?
I tried.
Oh, I meant to ask you, could you put you on the spot? Could you explain more about what common law is, by the way? I know that's from the last agenda item, but quite seriously, because this is obviously not common law.
So I think it was in the context of the honorable service ordinance, the common law, you know, is the, essentially the holdover of British law that all states except Louisiana adhere to. And before we had ordinances about everything under the sun in America, you still had cases in enforcement, and those were done under the common law, which is essentially just the historical decisions that had come down since the 1600s or what have you in England. And so the British common law carried over to the U.S., and then as we codified ordinances, we tend to move away from common law into more statutory type of law. And that's really what you're doing here. You're just, you know, hundreds of years later, putting into your code for clarification something that you actually had the right to do under common law, which is to not give a pension to somebody who did not serve you honorably. And those are much more difficult, given some other statutes in Rhode Island made much more difficult under the common law. And so these types of ordinances tend to stake out your position with some clarity. Is that generally what you're aiming for, Mr.
Yeah,
President?
that's good. This idea that some of the law is not completely written down and clear, and in case you're wondering why I'm bringing this up now, because when you have sort of a new area such as these solar credits, which are, I think, fair to say, somewhat cutting edge, you have these somewhat long and complex contracts because they don't have the benefit of, I don't think that old school England was doing solar credit. Maybe.
They were not guaranteed.
So, Open floor. Questions,
152
comments?
Hampton.
How do we feel about this very long document?
Yeah, ask
A lot
that
of
question.
upside.
I don't know that
Start us
answer.
off.
I have a question. It's actually about the accounts in the back. And, you know, I can identify some of these accounts, right, like the police department and the library. What's 152 Hambley?
Yeah.
That's probably,
What's 150?
probably the pumping station for the water department tank at the top of the hill, I would think.
It could be.
Where are
Yeah.
you looking, Patricia?
I'm looking at the
page, Trish?
accounts.
You looking at
Page
19?
19.
Yeah.
I was just flipping through the accounts, and
They put that new water tank up there at the top of it,
Yeah, you're probably right.
so it's probably
Oh.
that. Or the tower, there is a tower up there too.
Oh, it's near the hill.
Yeah, it's up on the hill.
Near the gas station there. There's like over, well, if you're
I
going
know,
towards
yeah.
North Tiverton, there's little streets over there.
I'm just looking because the 3-year usage is high, so I'm trying to, on a relative basis, I was just curious, not that we need to dig through these now. I might of my own volition. I mean, some of this stuff is old, right? We don't own the Essex Library building anymore. It still shows up on here. It may just be here because it's a historical account, but
That's probably the pumping station.
I'll check it out.
probably. I mean,
I'm trying to think of what's on here.
I'm just trying to,
That's what it
would
is,
be
the
it.
tank, that new water
Yeah,
tank they
that's
put
what
up
it
there,
would
top of
be.
Hambley and Picasset Avenue.
but whose
Yeah.
water tank is it?
It's North Tiverton Water Department.
Right. That's why I'm asking that.
Where's that?
So I'm not sure why our electricity bill is high there.
If we're not paying for it.
That's my question.
Well,
That's a little
if
bit
it's
my
the water
question.
department.
So we can get a discount on it.
It's probably because they supply water for the hydrants throughout the town, which is for protection. I'm just assuming.
I would think we pay tax.
Is that the one that Paul Verduke is with?
Yeah, that is a funny question.
Just out of curiosity, at some point, there's a number of these that are a little interesting. It might be worthwhile just to make sure that all these accounts are really,
Yeah, I actually thought that we had checked all of those downstairs, but I'll
Well,
double
Essex
check on
no
that
longer
particular
is.
one.
Turn it off and see if it blinks.
Well,
know
Essex
tomorrow morning
Library
first
is a
thing.
privately owned place now, so.
right. And that just might be historical. I mean, we may not be getting billed for that anymore, you would hope.
Who knows, maybe they figured we don't notice.
I don't know. You never know.
So they just keep it.
So
Just a-
this cost the town nothing?
Correct.
Right, so just to try to bring us back up to
like
the
going to
30,000 foot
gambling.
level, what we have here is we have an opportunity which has come to us because of the way the laws are written, that the town has opportunities to benefit from certain tax credits. We were able to engage in a leasing arrangement
Yep.
with respect to those credits, which we estimate will bring to the town savings of approximately $1 million over the course of 25 years. So 25 years is a long time, but it is we estimate $1 million. So, other than the sort of the heavy lifting that it took to get to this contract point of view, I think it's all upside. It's just a question of how much upside. So, what's your pleasure? I'm comfortable proceeding to vote on this. Would you like more time for review and study?
No.
Questions or comments from the public?
I would just like to ask the solicitor one question, if that's okay. So, so over the lifetime of this contract, if this for some reason were to become financially not advantageous for us later on down the years, is there an out option in this?
I couldn't find it.
Oh, read it.
So I know offhand, and I don't want to flip through 21 pages to try to find the reference, but I can tell you offhand, and Jan is as familiar with this, if not more than I am. It is the reason that the town gets these benefits is because it agrees to buy this power for 25
it's
years.
binding, though.
And so that's the great advantage. The sort of baked-in discount comes from the tax credits, and there's a percentage discount against the rate that's built into this that benefits the town. So there's not a lot of opportunity for this to go wrong for the town in terms of costing you more rather than less, or something along those lines. And the trigger that I recall is that if they are unable to deliver a certain amount of power to you and therefore get you those benefits, then you have an opt-out built into that. There we go. I was too far ahead.
Where is it, Rob?
Yeah, Article 2.
Page 4, Section 2.2, there's a whole variety of early termination provisions, including the one just stated that if they don't hit the 80%.
Oh, all right.
Or if they don't meet the commercial operating date, which is really the period that you're mostly concerned about, because they have to get the facility up to speed and operational. And so there is a provision for, that the buyer can actually terminate early if certain things don't happen by a certain time.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll move to ratify the proposed contract for renewable energy services net metering credit sales agreement with Kearsarge Solar LLC, and the authorization for the town council president to execute the contract.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Last chance. Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? And I'd really like to just again reinforce, this is 6 months in the making. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Potential $1 million of savings. Thank you for being on that. Okay, we are on to 10D. We have a finance budget transfers. As we get closer to year end, Chief Jones, you want to briefly introduce us?
Good evening. The first transfer that I've requested from your backup is a transfer of $3,957 from the education account into the operations account. And the purpose of that is to upgrade or basically repair our access control system. Currently, in the police department, we use a fob system, electronic key lock. So given some of the IT issues that we've experienced over the past year, we've determined that the backup or the hardware for that is nearly 20 years old. So I did some research. The initial fund to replace that system was $15,000. So we went to the original vendor and they said that they could repair it and upgrade it for less than $4,000.
Questions,
That's
comments?
a big disparity. I was like, the disparity of the prices was kind of,
I think the newer system, the $15,000 system, is probably, it's more robust, has more cutting-edge IT stuff. I also note that we spoke with our IT director in town, and he made the recommendation along with the administrator. We kind of emailed one another that not only is this the most cost-effective use, but it'll serve our purposes. So the $15,000 was just a quote that was out there.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of $39.57 from the education account 3306-928 to operations 3306-667 for support of the upgrade of the control access system.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Next.
The second transfer is in the amount of $30,000 from the current salary account into the overtime account. As you can see from our backup, that I gave to the town administrator, we have less than $15,000 in the overtime account. We have approximately 4 payroll periods left. We've experienced numerous vacancies. Just to kind of give you some perspective, we have 2 recruits graduating the police academy in 2 weeks. Those recruits are to replace me for getting promoted as your chief and another officer that left in March of 2018. So we haven't been up to full staff for quite some time. So factor in other vacancies. This is the prime vacation season, and as I've noted, we have a number of officers on extended medical and administrative leave, and we just promoted a new animal control officer, and she will move from her dispatch duties into the animal control position, which will create a vacancy there.
when someone moves from dispatch to animal control officer, Are they allowed for 1 year to go back,
30 days, ma'am.
just 30 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And just also, if I may add, I can also use her to cover for overtime. So I can use the animal control officer and there's 2 other records clerks to cover for overtime, which I intend on doing as well.
Because she's trained in both areas.
And it's also part of the ASPN contract as well, correct?
What's the training for the animal control officer? Like, how do you qualify for that?
So once she goes through, there's the 30-day period that she has the option, so the control of that position is pretty much on the employee. She can opt out. If she doesn't like the job, she can move back to dispatch. And we have to hold her job open for that 30-day period. But once she makes the 30-day period, we'll invest in her. We've actually already spoken to the SPCA in Rhode Island, and there is an animal control officer training certification course, which I plan on having her attend.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just didn't know. Does anybody else have any questions?
Looking good. Motion, do I have a motion approved?
I'd like to make a motion to transfer $30,000 from account number 3330-5101, salary, to account 3330-5104, overtime.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
4E, Mr. Administrator, approval of the appointment of Sarah Dwyer as part-time recreation coordinator.
We don't have backup on this? Do we? I don't, anyway.
I think it's in the packet.
I don't.
Packet.
Do you have a?
It's any-
Honest to God, I don't. I'm having backup issues.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
I was looking for it. No, I didn't have it, I'm sorry. It's okay, it's okay.
I have it, but I don't know.
I don't, it was an honest mistake. I got it. Rob gave it to me. I got it.
I
Thank
should
you.
say, feel free to not wait till the meeting to ask these kind of questions.
No, I'm really, I discovered it this afternoon when I got home from work and reviewed this again.
Okay.
I just didn't
Why don't
have
we
it.
introduce it, and if we need more time, we'll take it, but do you want to tee it up for us?
Is she here?
Sure, I think we were actually lucky. It's not that easy to find candidates for this position, believe it or not, and season is upon us, so we're getting almost desperate. We had one candidate in total. Unfortunately, she seems to be quite a strong, well-qualified candidate who also has the energy and interest to make things happen, and the kind of personality that you need in this case also to closely work with the Recreation Commission in particular. And the Recreation Commission was involved in the interviewing. The Personnel Board interviewed her, and everybody recommended that we go forward. She took a little extra time this past weekend to think it over, whether she really wants to spend her summer this way, but she decided that she will. And in the meantime, I've made sure that Jonathan is available to, speak with her when she has questions, which she more likely than not will have. And at the same time, Jonathan also no longer has this position. We agreed to terminate him as of last Friday.
He's in Florida, right?
He's in Florida. That has something to do with it.
Yeah, a little tough. He's not gonna get a town car.
No, unless he parks it here. but-
Plane. All right. Rob, you want this back?
Sure. What do you want? More time? or-
No,
Sure.
no, yeah.
Anyone who could spend 7
Okay.
hours a
And I
day
actually,
with
let me-
26 first-grade students.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to mention that I had used a part-time employment agreement in the past, decided to send this to Tim, and he made some additional changes to tighten it up, to the point that I find it almost intimidating for the candidate, but
At least it's all tightened up, though.
certainly has a lot of the assurances in there that I think you wanted to see, even in a part-time employment contract.
Okay, Okay, we have a recommendation from the administrator. Will there be a motion to approve?
I'll move to appoint Sarah Dwyer as a part-time recreation coordinator and including ratification of the employment contract, which would include, I presume, the administrator's authority to sign it.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Thank you.
For those of us counting, that's, I think, 17 straight 7-0 unanimous votes here tonight. Did you have 17? Is this a record? Let's see if we can find something controversial. Oh, maybe the town clerk can help us out. Madam Clerk is on the agenda.
How are you going to break the record?
Discussion and approval to begin process of appointing a deputy town clerk. She's come loaded with citations to Rhode Island general law. So we've got backup.
I have
Actually-
backup. I have it. I have backup.
I actually
Not backed
had
up yet.
requested this back in 2007.
Joe, you don't have backup?
The person decided not to do it, so I have once again considered that the need for that position in there. I need to get that department back up and running at full staff. I've discussed this with the Budget Committee. It is in both budgets. I should have enough money to handle the full-time position because I would be giving up the part-time position. By the way, that office had 4 full-time employees prior. I agreed to cut back to 3.5 because municipal court went to the police department. So, and I did at that time tell even the Budget Committee, I'm not sure who was on it then, but I did mention to them that this works when there's no election. It does not work when elections are coming. Already, we're in training. I have to send someone again next week. 2 people have to go up to the Board of Canvass for training. So this is a very much needed position. And I did speak with the solicitor a little bit on it in the sense that it's kind of a contract at will because a deputy clerk can revoke the appointment at any time. So it's not, I'm recommending it be non-union. I've spoken to the union as well with this, the union president, and I think they accept the fact that a deputy clerk would have to know some sensitive information and perhaps sit in on executive session if I wasn't, or if the clerk wasn't. So I guess I'd like the council's permission to get going with this because I've been kind of scraping up money from this year's budget in the hopes of being able to start sooner rather than later. It may only mean 2 weeks sooner, but I'm trying to scrape up some money. It's my intention to make it a 35-hour position as opposed to 32.5. In that way, we actually save on overtime because it's very difficult for the clerk that handles the council to get everything done without staying beyond the 4 o'clock. Jeannie's been very good with it, and she actually does a lot on her own time for this. But I mean, Friday she got out of here at 6 o'clock, Thursday she got out of here at 5 o'clock. We're paying overtime for this.
That's what OT is, her own time.
And, no, she has put in a lot of her own time on this, but you can't expect that to happen all the time. So I thought if it were 35 hours, that would save us on this overtime every week that we're going through. And I'd like to make one of the days a split shift where she does a council meeting at night, but doesn't come into 1 in the afternoon. So we're not paying overtime for at least 1 meeting a month. The rest, we're gonna have to pay the overtime. I'm assuming I'd probably pay her about what the senior clerk is being paid now. Maybe 25 cents more or so, but not much. And I do have the money in the budget. It was budgeted for what my intent is. So I'd like to get started on it. I have some people in mind that have been through the personnel board, but not particularly for this position. I'm not sure whether we need to go back to that or not, but I will check with labor attorney
Oh,
Okay,
I'll make
open
that a
floor.
motion. I'll make that a motion to
I'll second.
allow the clerk to appoint.
To begin the process to
For
appoint,
appoint deputy,
and I'll bring the
yes.
name before you with a contract.
Second.
Justin already said.
Justin got John.
I think Justin got to say.
Sorry, we can have point.
I think you see the immediate need for this to happen. So if I can arrange to get someone started, say, mid-June instead, is there a problem with the council with that?
Not at all.
She has three
It will be a big
sections
loss
voted.
with Lori leaving. She handled the licensing and was very good at the Board of Canvassing. So I have to get somebody in there I can rely on.
So would they also, would they be multitasked, like they could do the Board of Canvassers and various other things?
Yes.
I mean, when you're here, she's not going to do your job, right? She steps in when you're not here, is that the deal?
Well, she has the authority to sign and the keeper of the seal when I'm not here, but she would be doing, as the general law says, whatever my duties are. So she'd be handling the council, council minutes and council research or whatever the council's demands are, and probate, because that is something, probably payroll. I mean, she'd be doing basically the same things I'm doing. I'd be spreading my workload out a little bit, because I can guarantee you, when you have another clerk, they're not going to work the hours, and you're not going to get it done with one person.
Hey, what it says here is, it looks like you have the right to appoint who you want, right? So,
But the council still has to approve the
Well, there's
contract.
this word over here that I'll just raise my hand and say, I don't know that, with the approbation of the, I don't know that word. Does that, if anybody
Means
knows what?
approve.
It kind of was guessing that, but I
Yes.
was.
So I still have to have the council approve.
I have an English.
right here.
General
The deputy clerk, the town clerk may,
You don't know
with the
what that means.
approbation of
Yeah.
the,
He doesn't know.
our vice president, I think, is an English major.
Yeah, it just means approve.
I checked and they have not changed up to date. I checked.
It insinuates a bit of enthusiasm, so.
Okay.
And by the way, there is no mention of the deputy clerk in the bargaining contract.
This actually did come up from our work on the Charter Review Commission as well, because the charter uses what appears to be mandatory, there shall be language, and we kept having I'm looking for a motion to express our approbation. Oh, did you already?
Well, I don't know, Joe, was it?
Yeah, there was a motion and a
okay.
second.
Second.
Okay.
You missed that one.
What did he use? What
Time
word?
to vote.
I'm just reading from the law here.
It's like probation. but it's approbation.
I read that.
Common law, you like.
All those in favor? Thank you. That's number 18. All right, let's go back to the consent agenda.
So it'll be number 8.
Here's the problem.
This is
All right,
gonna be the
we're
one.
reviewing this one.
All right.
Aquatic, we're at aquatic, right? Or did I skip?
No, the first, oh yeah, you're right.
All right, so Mr. Administrator,
Here we go, aquatic.
Actually, I have,
I don't know.
this is my item, but
Donna, why can't you vote on this?
I don't know, because my grandson's like a lifeguard, like, should I be talking
No,
about?
No,
don't worry
that's
about
fine. That-
Yeah?
It's totally
All right,
different, yeah.
okay.
I didn't pull this because about this program, but I have a question about this program, which sounds wonderful, but I am curious because I've been seeing postings on Facebook looking for lifeguards. Do we
From John.
have any lifeguards yet?
I just learned today that one of the lifeguards from last year wants to come back.
Okay, so.
I think that's all we have so far.
So it-
And one of the things that I've told these folks is that they may well have to wait. And I don't want them to show up unannounced and not even knowing whether we have lifeguards, so.
Okay, so they understand that they're not going to show up and we're going to have one lifeguard or no lifeguards, and they're aware that they'll have to wait
And this
till
is
we're
not,
ready.
they're not an enforcement
No, I know.
agency. They're just trying to make sure, and it's basically, I think, driven by the trust, concerned about liability
Yeah.
and exposure that both the trust and we have to try to make sure that we across the state, tighten things up and make sure that they're trained well, they're certified when they do the job.
Okay.
Yeah, I
It's
just
not-
think it'd be
I
more
am-
beneficial if we have enough lifeguards
have-
to be part of it.
I am the one who pulled it, and I guess my concern is that,
I thought you
I mean,
pulled
I've
it.
talked to Donna in the past because her grandson was a lifeguard, and I know they're state certified to do rescue, surf rescue, CPR, first aid by the state. And I guess I wasn't quite sure what,
These people don't certify, but they check that you're certified.
and it
And
seems like.
also that you follow sort of the protocols that lifeguards need to, and, sit at the right distance from one another, whatever it is. There's
Okay.
certain ways that you should be
The one
paying
thing,
attention
and they
is
say
one big
they
thing.
don't certify. The one thing they said, their assessment is based solely on observations made on the dates of the visits. And I would hope that they would talk, I know that there were issues of lifeguards being a little concerned about the amount of distance they had to cover and only one of them there, so if he was out rescuing somebody and somebody else was over here, that was a real problem. So I would hope that they, and I know it's, the trust is paying for it together, it's not, the town's not paying for it.
No.
That's just my question, I'm just not quite sure what the value added they're doing.
I think the insurance company, the trust,
Yeah.
just wants to make sure that we follow all the rules. I think it's a trust thing, to tell you the truth, so.
But I
that-
also think it can actually strengthen our program.
Oh.
I mean, we don't really have the people to walk around and work with the lifeguards to say, how about doing it this way, that way? Now we have help, the people actually doing that who are, hired to do specifically that. I think it can just strengthen the program and increase safety.
So as you look at the way it plays out, if the trust, if we do this and the trust pays for it and the Red Cross comes in, is there any obligation that's going to stem out of that we now have to buy into a Red Cross certification program or something?
No, they have to be
Okay.
certified.
Not if it's not in the agreement.
They have to be certified.
Sometimes good things come unannounced.
Right.
I just want to say something, and if it's a problem, just stop me. But in all of this, I never see where anyone asks the lifeguard anything, what the problems are. Does anybody, have a lifeguard, say, this problems?
I would imagine the recreation committee, that's their responsibility, but I
Nobody
don't know if
asks
they
them.
ask.
Nobody speaks to them.
Yeah, well, we don't have like that, yeah.
I know, because I asked. Nobody asks
Well,
what
maybe,
the problems are.
I think that's a valid point, and I think it's something that both the Recreation Commission, but also the coordinator, should be considered part of
maybe
their
the new
responsibilities. We definitely need to, hear from the people who are doing the
I mean,
work.
I personally know what the problems are. I don't think it's my place to say, but not to even ask the lifeguards what the problems are? I think I've spoken to you a few times.
Yeah,
but-
and in question to that, there were times where we had told them if they have any problems to let us know what they were. No one ever came forward. There were a couple of times somebody came forward and said they had an issue with this or that, but for the most part, nobody ever said, it was because they were alone or because they were too far from the area. Nobody ever said that.
Kids.
Well,
Kids.
and
I don't know if they're gonna
If
say
I may, well, first of all, there is no policy not to talk to the lifeguards or not to
Right.
ask them. The policy is that,
There's no
we try to
lifeguards.
work with people, and that involves getting feedback back from them. I also think that it would make sense to institutionalize a little bit that when people work here for a season, that at the very least, at the end of the season, you have sort of an exit interview, what is good, what
Yeah.
could be improved,
I
et cetera,
agree.
et cetera. And that could be a two-way street. But I do think it makes sense to get more of those practices in place, frankly. So we'll work on that.
So-
And they are first responders,
oh, yeah.
and there doesn't seem to be enough backup for them, so.
Okay.
So I'm happy then to make a motion to approve this, but I do have one sort of follow-up request now that we only have one lifeguard. Since Memorial Day is not far away, could we get before Memorial Day weekend an update on what the plan is for both the beaches for Memorial Day in terms of lifeguards, gate attendants? Just because people will ask, and it would be good if the council knew ahead of time what the staffing plan is and how we're going to handle it, especially if we only have one lifeguard. And I know that there had been some conversations with DEM. I think that there were going to be at some point about their regulations. So, other than that, I'll make a motion to approve whatever number this was, which I don't remember anymore on the agenda.
Or
Number
E.
At letter E.
Consent item E.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can we have council liaisons where we assign times that we have to go watch?
Oh, I could never save a life on the beach, so maybe an emergency room, but
I
not on the
would
beach.
I actually have my advanced life
Well, there you
saving
go. Trish could
certification.
work that.
Yeah, that was a really long time ago, though.
All right. So it's H now, Rob?
Hey, congratulations.
Did you vote on this?
H.
That was
H is the next one.
approved. 4H, Mr. Administrator, I'm sorry, I cannot remember who pulled this. Oh,
Donna did and I seconded, but before we even start, this is a personnel matter, right?
Yes.
Did we ask the person if we could talk about this in public? Because,
Yeah,
first
we
of all,
can't.
right, I don't,
No, that's not how it works.
well,
The-
we're advertising an opening, and I'm not aware of a resignation or anything in writing.
Okay, and I'm surprised that this is not in the packet, because I had written something up about
Oh,
it.
it is, but
with-
it's-
With a minimum of information, because it is a personnel matter. I don't want to go into a whole lot of details, but I have spoken.
Right, I know, but usually the way this works is you come to us, you say, well, it's public knowledge because it's on the agenda that you're not renewing, and then we talk about it in executive, and then we come out
Yeah.
here and we have a plan.
I-
But I'm really worried that I don't know if, like, this is public knowledge now that we're not renewing a contract, and we haven't really asked him if that's okay if we discuss this, because apparently there's an evaluation that went on that we haven't seen, and I don't even know if he agreed.
Just so that you know, obviously, I went to him. First of all.
No, I know, but this isn't
Can I
usually.
finish, please? So, we had a discussion about it, and then I said, okay, so this is going to be on the agenda. You have any problem with that? He did not.
But usually you have it in writing, because that's the way we've normally done it.
I think the agenda item is limited enough to not implicate personnel matters of the sort that you're referencing. If you wanted to have a discussion of evaluations and such, that's not the agenda
Yeah,
item you
but we're
posted.
advertising for a position, we
But-
didn't even get a,
But you did not put on your agenda anything that has to do with those types of personnel items that are protected or would need to be in executive session. So as long as you limit your discussion to what the administrator has asked in his agenda request, I think you're fine.
my question is, we didn't even get anything
It's asked
until it came
backwards.
out here that said that he wasn't coming back. Donna, this is your subject, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think it's backwards.
I do too.
And I think it needs to be an executive session. Not that I maybe don't agree with, but it's just sort of the horse is out of the barn before I even heard what the
Right,
horse
what
was.
the horse was.
I just.
I think, not to speak for Jan, but I think part of the issue here is that you've got a timing issue. You've got a new official coming in on the building side. You need to replace your planner within a certain time. If you wanted to have an executive session discussion, that could certainly be a future agenda item in terms of the details that may be related to personnel matters. But I don't think your administrator wanted to wait any longer than necessary to get your permission, which is all this does,
Yeah, but
to
we didn't even
advertise
know
the
that he
spot.
wasn't coming back, and then it's all of a sudden, let's advertise.
Can I ask a basic
It's-
question?
it's-
Do we
it's-
have to know? Isn't that
Yes.
with?
Why?
Well, where? Where in the charter does it say we have to be advised when somebody's leaving? I'm serious.
Okay, because this is the best way I can explain it. If we were gonna renew his contract,
Yeah.
we have to vote on that, we have to ratify it.
We
So
do.
we're not renewing his contract. So in the past, this has happened before, we discuss it in executive, Jan tells us why he's not renewing this contract, and then we come out here and it's just done backwards. This was on the agenda before I even knew, and Donna explained it too. This is how we found out that we weren't renewing the contract. And I think that this is just what normal protocol has been, is that we go in that office, we say it, because you're actually filling a position that we didn't even know is vacant.
I understand that, and I understand the past practice. I would really discourage you from following that past practice, because what you just described was a rolling quorum, where you're getting information about a personnel matter outside the public meeting.
No.
And-
I'm
and-
not saying a rolling quorum, I'm saying in there. This is the first time we heard
In
about this.
executive session, she meant.
But
I'm
that
saying
was
in
my,
executive
that was my earlier
session.
point, that if it was executive session and then at some later meeting you had the approval, then it would have dug into the timing of replacing this very vital
Right,
position.
no, I'm not suggesting we have a rolling quorum. I just think that we didn't even know that there was a vacant position and why there's a vacant position. And now he's asking for us to fill a vacant position where we don't have a resignation, we have nothing in writing that he's not coming back. And I'm wondering about the legal part of this, like we're gonna advertise for a vacant position that we never knew was vacant and we have nothing in writing.
I don't see any legal issues with this at
There's
all.
nothing in writing that says he's not coming back, that we've seen.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that.
Well, I don't
But this
know that
agenda
either.
item
We
is simply
should-
to advertise a position.
What-
There's no legal restriction on you voting to advertise a position.
Yeah.
That's the only legal question.
This is
No,
done it backwards.
I find it problematic because all of a sudden I'm sitting here and I'm being told to okay putting out there to advertise for a position that I didn't even know
No,
was a
vacant.
problem. That I don't know, that just seems like kind of weird to me.
It's just not usual. It just shouldn't be done this way.
One, two, then me at some point, go ahead.
Okay.
Here you go.
With all due respect, I think I have the responsibility to deal with a situation where someone is leaving, and that's basically all I wanted to say about it. We have an understanding. He has made a decision, he has given the date, and it's time to advertise the position as soon as possible, because we all know this is a critical position, and let's try to get a better, let's try to get a good replacement for Bill. That's all it is. That's really, I mean, time has gone by. I had announced earlier that, certain contracts come up for renewal. This one hasn't come up for renewal. That should be enough information right there.
No.
And it's always something that, I keep being told that, we've done it differently in the past. Well, again, with all due respect, in this situation, I think this was the right way to do it.
Hi, Rob.
Remember, our administrators work with other towns also, so this.
Oh.
All right, I think Justin, next up, I get a shot.
I have a comment.
And then back, okay.
I don't have any problem with doing things differently than they've been done. But it sounds like, I would think that town council, especially as we think of how town government might be structured, would be beneficial in the process to give some direction or at least feedback on what it is that would make the position more useful to the town. So if we were having another meeting next week, we could have that executive session without adding to a future agenda, just to give everybody some knowledge about what's going on and an opportunity to give feedback on that. So I'd throw out that pitch.
I don't know what the hurry is.
I don't know. I think 1 week or 2 weeks is not much of a delay, but
I just wanted to make a technical point that, correct me if I have this wrong, but on a personnel matter, the Open Meetings Act is not that we are required to go in executive session. The Open Meetings Act allows the person to force us into open session.
right.
So unless we have some other contractual or legal limitation,
We always ask
It's
the
not,
employee.
it's not at all improper for us to talk about a personal matter in the open. And this isn't even so much that as a request to simply advertise. So I just want to make sure we all kind of were level set on the open meetings piece, because I know it's a hot topic. Okay. Who was it back to you, Councilor Hill?
So,
Did everybody get a chance to speak once? I'm sorry. Okay.
Trish hasn't.
I
You
have
have not,
to-
I'm sorry. I thought this was your item.
No.
No,
I-
okay.
So,
it's her turn.
I
yeah.
apologize.
I have to admit that I feel similar to Denise and to Donna on this, for the reason being that when someone is not coming back, whether that's because in part they've chosen not to, and I don't know what the circumstances are, they're choosing not to have their contract renewed, or they couldn't come to agreement with the administrator, or it's the administrator's decision. When it comes to a department head position, and I'm speaking only and solely about the department heads, I think that it is important for us to have some understanding, because it bears on, it bears on our sort of general oversight of the town and understanding why a department head might choose to leave, or not be willing to sign a new contract if we wanted that, or if in the administrator's position, which is certainly his right to have, and you have to respect that this is not working out. But I think we need to know that, because if we don't, it makes it difficult for us to, evaluate how we're doing with our department heads, and that's, I think, as a council, an important thing to understand. And I think it also, it's also, in a certain way, a part of the administrator's evaluation, too. So by skipping that step, I think the council loses important information that it needs to have going forward. Just my opinion.
Can I just say one, or is Donna? No, go ahead. So I'm looking at the charter, and I don't see anything that prohibits Jan from doing what he's trying to do. Clearly, he has the obligation to appoint somebody from candidates recommended, and the appointment is subject to the town council. And he has an obligation to submit annual evaluations of department heads. But in the middle of that, if something happens, I don't see where our charter limits what he's doing here at all.
I might just jump in, and we may remember that we actually did, I think it might have been one of our first policy actions that this body took, was to put a little structure around the heads up of a renewal or non-renewal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a little bit of a unique position, because I think we actually called a special meeting on a question of probationary
Yeah,
period in
and
November.
we gave probation.
So this is,
We
this
advanced
one's not your kind of average, here, there's a 3-year renewal coming up.
Right.
We wanted to make sure we had a heads up, and not just for a non-renewal, but if there was going to be, say, a salary adjustment,
Mhm.
even in a positive direction. I don't think we wanted to have to address those as the contract was being, expired or just about to expire. So, it sounds like, I'm getting the sense there's at least a couple of you that would sponsor an executive session discussion on a
Yes.
personnel matter.
Yeah.
And the subject person would have the right to force that conversation to be in the open, as we always do with these, if we want to do that. And so my question for the team here is, do you want to see that happen before you take action on
Yes.
what I don't think is, I don't know that there's any debate that we do need to fill this position. I've also, not to belabor too long, but I've also been in contact with our chair of the planning board, who's also willing to step in on an interim basis at no cost to help fill a gap. So if that gives us some runway or some time.
Poor Susan.
I don't know if that helps you with your scheduling conversation. And I'm happy to have a special meeting, as you know, so.
I have just one question. I'm willing, understanding that if this position is going to be empty, that it needs to be replaced, as long as the town solicitor can assure us that in the absence of something in writing, we don't put ourselves in any legal jeopardy by advertising a contract for any position that still exists. We're not.
That somebody's still there.
That we're not going to get in, there's no possibility we have any problem with that.
see no way in which that will create a legal issue for you. Simply advertising the position is not interfering with the contract. It's not doing anything other than just getting information for the town administrator to base a future decision on. I don't see any legal concern.
In that case, I don't, but I would like to have, the executive session discussion as well.
too.
But I'd be okay with making a motion to go ahead and begin the process of advertising
An ordinance.
authorization tonight.
My first question is, if we authorize the advertising, what's the practical time frame of that on the calendar?
Oh, it's gonna be a lot, it's,
After the end of the year.
yeah.
So it'll
I would
be,
say probably middle to late June.
Yeah.
would it actually start
Well,
the,
no, probably by the middle of June.
That depends on how you
I mean, I've got to
word
put it
it.
in places, I've got to,
that's the request for response, or that's when it starts advertising?
no, that's when
We'll
I
get it
look
back.
for a response. I'll try to get it out by next week, or this week.
We wait one more
See-
week.
So,
But I mean, you got to give it 3 weeks or so, because I'd have to, I think the last time I put it on certain sites for planners and.
It took a
So,
long
I mean,
time.
those don't publish every week, so look and see what their schedule is.
so what were the scheduling conflicts for next week?
I'm not available next
All
week.
week?
Vacation.
Just before we dive into that, is there any objection to proceeding to the advertisement today, fairly or unfairly? Is there any?
I guess the bottom line is he's not going to be here, so I guess we got to go forward with this, even though I feel that it was asked, oops, sorry. Backwards. It's backwards. I apologize.
I'm trying to go for 2020 unanimous. Is this, am I gonna make, it's gonna go to?
No, you're not gonna make it
Is
this
there an
time.
over-under out here?
You're not making it.
All right, good. I don't want us to think we're all hold up. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve approve the advertising for the position of Town Planner Administrative Officer.
Clarity, this is advertisement only.
I'll second it.
Correct.
Would anybody from the public like to be heard on this? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. This would be to approve the request to advertise only for an open position of Town Planner Administrative Officer. The council will, I can guarantee this will, the personnel matter will come up for executive session at a meeting to be determined shortly. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed?
Broke your record,
2,
sorry.
19.
It's a record meeting, Justin voted.
And those
for
were
something
19 like
together.
real votes too. Those weren't like 19 motions to adjourn. Okay. No problem. I think we have, we just have to acknowledge some resignations, then we have general announcements, and then I promise we'll get back to the scheduling question. Is that okay?
Resignation.
So this was, I did.
CAI.
Oh, sorry.
I did. And we can do this really quickly, but I'm not, I have to admit that it bothers me a little bit to put resignations on the consent agenda. It's hard to get volunteers. Many of the people, serve for a very long time. We can do it quickly, but at least when we do resignations in the regular order, not in the consent order, it gives us an opportunity to thank people for their service. And somehow, I feel that putting these on the consent agenda, it just doesn't feel right, because I, for one, would like to express my appreciation to people who have served. So, that being said, I'm happy now to acknowledge the resignations of Michael Tavares from the Recreation Commission, and Jeffrey E. Karen from the Budget Committee. And although it's not a resignation, the withdrawal of requests for appointment to the Planning Board of Raymond Rougier, and accept these with our appreciation for their service to the town.
Second.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? We're back on track. 7-0. General announcements and comments. back to the administrator. Anything we've missed?
No, and I'm sorry, but I would like to mention a couple of things. One is that last week, some of us participated in what's called the Business Walk, and I thought it was an interesting concept that turned out to be quite educational, certainly for me, in terms of the feedback that we got from some business folks in town. Councilman Katz was on the same team that I was. There were 2 teams, and we visited different businesses. I understand that the other team actually had mostly positive feedback from the business folks.
That was my team. Our team beat yours.
So you can confirm that. And I wanted to mention that because my next point is that in the way I experienced it, we got quite a bit of negative feedback. And I would flag as probably the most prominent issue the tangible tax issue, and that it's very high, and could something be done about it. I think what is happening is that the truly small businesses are struggling with the cost of doing business here, and it would be, I'm not judging it one way or another, and sometimes you have to sort of take it with a grain of salt, but I believe that there is a sincere frustration with how difficult it is from a financial perspective to stay in business, and how sometimes the town could do a little bit better with assistance, whether it's looking for some type of relief, and I think the tax assessor may have some ideas in that regard, or improving the kind of assistance programs that we might have to show that we have an interest and support the business community. There's also the issue of, this is in North Tiverton in particular. North Tiverton is not the most attractive streetscape. It doesn't really help business all that much. The question is who's responsible for that. That's not a simple question, but it's something that I think we need to look into because several people commented on, how difficult it is in a particular physical environment to attract businesses. I just wanted to mention it, not to put the blame or to overstate it, but I think it warrants more attention, whether it's from the Economic Development Commission or from all of us here. I think more can be done and should be done. The next thing is that I think I was asked to mention it, and I wanted to mention it anyway, that on the 18th, there will be a nice event at the Tiverton Public Library, a presentation on the brief history of the history of the Stonebridge Village, pre-colonial to the present, with a lot of the research and the presentation being done by Susan Anderson. And I keep reading about all the research that she does, and I keep learning from it. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and this looks like a very interesting event. Lastly, the bad news is that we continue to have problems with our rescue trucks, and it's becoming quite an expensive proposition. Still sticking with the decision to make the repairs to get Rescue 2 back on the road. But it's a painful experience, and one thing that's absolutely clear to me is that we really need to look into our maintenance program, such as it is. I have a hard time believing that these problems cannot be somehow avoided or at least minimized, but I may be wrong. It may be the brand, and we're certainly talking to the manufacturer about it, but I think we need to get really serious about how we treat our vehicles, what kind of maintenance we do on a regular basis, so we're pursuing that. I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay.
I guess just briefly on the business walk, because Justin and I, Nancy was there for a time as well. We had representatives from our Economic Development Commission. Our head of our library services was there, police chief, fire chief. One piece of feedback that we did hear on our team, so to speak, fairly consistently was sometimes getting different answers from the town in different parts of the town. And that's probably something we're all familiar with. The good news is that our local Economic Development Commission is actually working, this is one of the products they're working on, which is a bit of an, sort of an informational brochure map to help navigate. And I'm also quite confident that as we fill out some of the staffing that you're seeing here, is helping us with it, that's going to improve, I think, substantially. So that was a theme that we did here.
I think the biggest takeaway on John and my team for me was that idea that the inconsistency of personnel in particular, on state and local, so it wasn't just a Tiverton thing, but everybody would come in with their own regime of problems that you have to solve as a business owner. Sometimes the sticker's too high or too low, or you can't put a wire under a rubber thing, it's gotta be in the floor, that kind of thing. One person would give that advice or instruction, the business would put money into complying, and then 6 months later, there's a new person in that office who has a whole different set. Oh, you could have left those wires out, but you need to maybe move these lights over there. I mean, so it was just that sense that there was no consistency, and I think that hopefully with the zoning, a new person in zoning and so on and so forth, we can, if we have that, and an administrator, if we can keep a trend of having the same person with, at least, at the very least, they'll put their own little nitpicky things in there and everybody can get used to them. But I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, was just the changing of the sort of the fiefdoms was a big issue. But I agree, it was definitely a worthwhile event, and probably something worth doing independently on our own, as if you have some free time on a weekday to go out and knock on some business doors. Because some of them didn't get the email that we were coming, and so it's almost like showing up unannounced anyway.
Very Okay, I think we're over to the clerk. There's an FTR coming.
There's an FTR coming, so I just want to remind everybody that Thursday and Friday, the 16th and 17th of this week, we will have absentee voting here at the town hall from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. And on Saturday, the FTR will actually take place at the Tiverton High School Gymnasium, again from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. Emergency voting is going on right now, and that will go on till 4 o'clock on Wednesday.
Question, can anyone come in Thursday and Friday and vote here, or is it just people that are going to be?
You can come in because the state has changed the requirements for absentee voting, which simply says I may not be able to make it on
Okay.
Saturday.
Because people have asked me that, and I've been telling them.
We
and
have
thinking-
over the years gotten more and more people coming in, and, which is good, because some of the elderly come in because they don't want to wait in lines,
And some of the parents, because of soccer games and baseball games and
yes,
Saturdays being
soccer games.
Saturdays.
So that has taken place this week, and I also want to make mention that we received a thank you card from Chief Jones's family on the arrangement we sent.
You?
Just briefly, actually, I'd ask to be able to go back and just reference the ordinance, Councilor Cook's ordinance. One other item that finally came back to me after sitting here. The other item I should have mentioned is that while the pension benefits apply to only the town pension system, the ordinance actually withdraws all town benefits, pension and otherwise. So if there are benefits the town pays for, healthcare, OPEB kind of things, those may in fact be withdrawn under this ordinance even for the other employees who are state pensioners. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. It's an important point, and I didn't want to neglect it. Now, that being said, the real reason I wanted to talk was just mention that you may have noticed that I've tried to update the form of an ordinance change to sort of model the state form a little bit more, so we'd have who it's introduced by, and then the dates where it's introduced and heard and voted on, and we can have numbered ordinances. I think it's a bit a pet peeve of mine, so I apologize if it's more than you necessarily need, but I think it's a good system, especially as I've heard talk that in the third quarter of the year, you may consider zoning ordinance and other, you may end up with a lot of ordinance changes in 2019, and so I thought having them organized, numbered, categorized, with all the right information on them. So my point is only to say that to the extent that any counselor wishes to propose an ordinance, I'd be happy to take that proposal and plug it into this form so that we have a consistent numbering system and a consistent form throughout the year.
Sorry.
Open floor. Anybody else?
Were we expecting responses on the solicitor RFP?
Sorry, I could have announced that. Yes, that, the deadline for that was 4 o'clock on Friday, and we received 4 responses. I have copies of them now. What would the council like me to do? Distribute them, arrange for interviewing? How do you want to proceed with that?
Do you want to know how we usually do? Well, it's very organized.
Everybody was so happy with the process last time. For the interim role, I thought it would be.
Rob, really?
Well, is this another reason to have a special meeting? I mean, should we get right to it? Or what do you?
That's going to take a little bit because you have to get the
Well, I have
candidates to come in and.
see when they could come in, so you're going to have
We
to
just
give me
4, so
some
Are you
Yeah,
suggesting we
we'll
interview all
dates.
4 since it's just 4? Or do you want to screen them down to 3 or?
I think because it's just 4, we might as well just do 4.
That's
We
what-
usually,
Probably half hour.
that's what we did last
Administrative
time, yeah.
calendar.
But it's just getting all of them together, especially next week, Memorial Week. Well, no, it isn't Memorial Weekend, though.
Following
No,
week.
the following week. But next weekend is Memorial. I don't know, it's up
No,
to you.
following week, 2 weeks.
Usually with 4, you could probably do them in one night, just 30, 40-minute interviews with each one, couple hours should be done. Or you could do 2 and 2, it's up to you. Do you want me to distribute the
Yes.
resumes and whatnot, the proposals prior to you deciding?
Yeah.
In case this,
Yeah, I mean.
all right, I have them this
I'm going to do
evening,
whatever you all
so.
want to do, but I don't, it doesn't have to be all 4. I mean, you might immediately. But I don't want any doubt about the process. If you want to do all 4, we'll do all 4.
Rob, what we could do is, we could all review them, and then we could have a meeting where we decide who we want to interview, see if we have that. That's what we did last time. We had much more than 4, we had like 8, I think. And then Nancy can set up the appointments for us, and we can set a date.
So should we try to?
It has to be in
squeeze this
public, by
meeting
the
in,
way.
though, And we can hit Justin's item, the personnel item, this discussion on the solicitor,
Chief
I
and I
would think
can't
should be,
make it next
can't
week.
meet either any day, even later in the week?
Not available.
Is there any
I'm
appetite
good.
for later this week?
It's a lot
No,
to
I can't make
put
it later
on
this week.
agenda items along with
Right.
interviews. It's going to take you a while to.
Can we do it the following week?
The following week, that's Memorial Day, right?
Following week's Memorial Day weekend, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'll get it all done on the 28th. I'm actually pretty impressed with our progress tonight, so do you have a?
Until right now.
I don't have my plan.
I'm only kidding.
Well, we were shooting for 9, so, actually, but Jan and I talked, we don't need the full hour.
You want to try it on the 28th? At least discuss it, Rob, which ones we want to interview.
Yeah,
and
we
then
can't do the
then the
interviews on the
following.
28th.
No, and then the following week, we can do interviews, and we can have someone appointed by,
So how does the
Mitchell.
28th work? Because you and Donna are sponsoring the other items that are being carried over here, so would you do you want to press the
28th is
special
the
meeting, or
time.
are you okay waiting the 28th? It could be another long meeting.
Well, my preference would be to break things up and do something next week, but if 2 people can't be here for.
I mean, it's
these are pretty
important issues not to
items.
have us
I
there.
was just
I'm
about to say
sorry.
that, thank you. I guess it's the 28th.
Okay, so we'll shoot for the 28th, and then if it doesn't work, we're going to have to spill another special meeting, and if we can't get 7 out of 7, we'll just have to do the best we can.
And that
Fair.
second special meeting could be all the detritus from that.
But meanwhile.
I think I'll
we'll see what-
contact them and just let them know that the council will be considering interviews after the 28th.
Do you have to
I mean, I
advertise
don't
for a
want them
special
just
meeting?
2 weeks with no
How
response.
much notice?
48 hours.
48 hours.
Well,
just
unless we
an open
continue
meeting.
this meeting, then.
I was
guess
going to
we-
say, if you could continue the 28th to the 29th or the 30th, you
Well, you
could
could
wrap it up
definitely
that
do it
week.
to the
We
30th.
could, we could. In fact, we could pre-book
probably a
interview
good
time
idea.
for the 29th, 30th. That might be the answer.
Yeah,
How's everybody that week?
good. I'm good.
No, the 28th is
Yeah.
after
28th,
Memorial
29th,
Day.
30th, I'm
Friday.
good.
Okay.
Friday's
Problem solved.
Memorial Day. I think
Yeah,
the
I'm good.
28th is Monday, and the
I'm a good problem solver.
Good deal. We are probably heading in an executive session. Is there any other matters? We close that open?
I'm sorry, problem solved, but I didn't get
didn't get
the
the solution.
solution.
We'll tell you later. going to make a motion to go into executive.
The actual interviews? Oh, okay.
I think that, yeah, we have a motion inbound. All right, we want to rattle off the,
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session, Town Administrator, RIGL-4246584, investigation of allegations of misconduct, either criminal or civil.
Second, yes?
Yes.
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 I'm taking a 5-minute break. We did really
okay, we'll
good.
take a 5-minute recess.